Hello everyone, welcome to our program Books and Authors. I'm your host Terry Kelly, and we have a very special guest today, Carol Ekster, who has written a book. And the reason that I feel that she's such a special guest is that she is my neighbor. And I did not know that she wrote books until I spoke with her husband on the phone. And that's why I'm interviewing you today, Carol, because Mark told me about you. So welcome to our program.
Thank you.
This will be a lot of fun talking about your book. The title of the book is Where Am I Sleeping Tonight? And when we think of children's books, we think of funny stories or silly things maybe, but this is a very serious book for children, and it's a story about divorce. So how did you come to write this book? Whatever made you decide to write a book about divorce for children?
Well, I'm an elementary school teacher this is going to be my 35th year, and I think that's where my writing comes from, that teacher in me, wanting to continue to teach. And all my topics that I've written about seem to be very serious topics, something that I'm trying to get a message across, which of course they say is not what we're supposed to be writing about. But I think it's important for kids to hear stories like this and things that are important to them. So I happen to have started to write about 6 years ago, and this was my 20th book that I wrote, but it's only the first one that was bought by a publisher. This one was written actually very loosely based about a wonderful student that I had who touched me very deeply because he had this kind of situation where 2 nights at one house, 2 nights at another house, and it was never even the same night, so it was 2 nights, 2 nights, 2 nights. It seemed very disorienting, and he was very disorganized. And he was just a love, but you could see that he was sad and that it was difficult for him to stay organized. He was always forgetting things. So that was in the back of my mind, and I wanted to write some kind of divorce book. I didn't know exactly what. And I was on a plane on my way to vacation, and I started to write it. And then I finished writing it on vacation. I came back, and I brought it to my critique group, and I sent it out a short time later to my first publisher. It took 12 tries until it was sold.
Oh my goodness, so when you write a book, I hear that you have to be very persistent.
Oh yes.
And it gets rejected and you just keep trying. So that's a lesson in itself.
That's been amazing for me because I'm not always the most patient person. I like to get everything done quickly, but I took to this. I got immediately involved, immediately joined an organization, a writing organization. I joined critique groups, and I just was gung-ho. It became another passion because teaching had always been my passion.
Yes.
And this is another little segue, offshoot, yeah, because I feel like I'm still teaching. Most of the subjects are serious. So,
what are some of the other subjects that might interest you, or that you?
Well, I've written a lot of things about. Sometimes I got ideas on my own. Sometimes, like a librarian told me that there's no stories about kids tying their shoes in the elementary school because everybody thinks that elementary school kids can tie their shoes, but they're all, tripping and walking with their laces loose.
Yeah.
So first I said I have to write about something I feel strongly about. But then a while later, the whole story kind of came to me, and I wrote that. But that still hasn't been sold because a lot of people write back. This seems, for younger kids, it doesn't seem right, but they don't know. In the elementary school, everybody, their laces are all over the place.
So it really is a problem for the children.
It is a problem, and librarians would like a book like that. I'm sure teachers would like a book, but sometimes publishers are, don't know what's really going on, I think.
That's a fascinating thought.
Yeah.
There must be all kinds of other problems that children face.
That's true. I wrote another book about after-school care. Nobody's home but me. I've changed the title a few times on that one, but about kids who are.
What do they do after school?
Right, because they don't want to at a certain age, 4th and 5th grade, they don't really want to stay at the after-school program. But it's kind of scary to stay alone, and I kind of wrote a story about that I thought was needed. I've sometimes written stories about things that were missing in my curriculum because I read picture books, and I teach 4th grade, And picture books are an amazing resource for every subject. You'd be amazed. Every subject I teach, even in math, I read picture books. So I didn't know because I never wanted to write.
Picture books are books without words, just pictures for young
picture
children?
books have words. There are all different kinds of picture books. There's story picture books that have more words. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Patricia Polacco's books, but they could be 1,500 to 2,000 words, but beautiful stories
for
and
children.
Full pictures, yes. And elementary school teachers, even through 5th grade, even in the upper grades, people are reading picture books to get a point across. So that's kind of where I came from, knowing how many I read and seeing a few, gaps in the curriculum, and then things that just came to me. The Clear Blue, I could be driving along and I wrote a story about losing a mother, and thank goodness I still have my mother. But it was like Mother's Day, and I just was crying in the car, and I felt the whole story, and I wrote it. So different things come to me, and I write those stories.
Well, I taught school, as you know, for many years, not younger children in high school, and I'm now getting used to working with younger children in teaching piano to the very young ones. But I never realized all the problems that young children have, and I'm still learning more just from talking to you here about the shoelaces and stuff. But these are big problems to little children.
Right.
And I think as the world gets crazier and crazier, that the problems get worse and worse, and that there are so many more problems that children face, things that we didn't have to deal with when we were little.
Right.
And I think peer pressure and social skills and all that, it's just, the rules have changed. It's so different, and I think it's very difficult for a lot of kids. Sure, children with divorced parents have extra problems, and we're talking about a 50% divorce rate, so that's a lot of children that are split between 2 households, or maybe only in one household and missing a parent. Right. And longing to be with that parent.
There's, you see the sadness, mostly if it just happened. You see the sadness more so, and it's a tough time to go through. I know a child just wrote me a beautiful note from 4 years ago, how that I helped her get through the divorce. I didn't even realize how difficult it was, but I think you have to keep them on task and let them know no matter what happens, you have to go on, and you have to do your job. And being in school, that's your job. And I was a little tough on that particular kid that the story is loosely based on, because he needed to be responsible. I wouldn't have been helping him if I just said, oh, that's okay, you forgot your homework.
Yeah, because there's a reason for everything, but there's not an excuse for everything.
Right.
And you have to think about school in terms of the future in their job.
Right.
And if they learn that having a problem excuses them from doing something, then they're going to carry that into their work life, and they will fail.
I think being responsible is one of the most important things that I can teach kids.
Yeah, responsible no matter what is going on.
Yeah.
That's a great lesson.
You want to count on people in your life, and I tell them that. Don't you want to be someone that people can count on? So.
Yeah. There are children who live in families where the parents stay together and fight and argue and hate each other. And the children aren't living in a home where the parents are divorced, but they're living in a miserably unhappy home. Are these children, can you tell at a young age like that in 4th grade when they have an unhappy home, does that show up in school in their behavior?
Maybe, we don't know what the problems are that they're having. You can tell when some kids are troubled. You know that something's going on.
Yeah.
There are some kids who, because of their behavior or their attitude or not getting work done, you know that something's going on. You don't always know what. And that I imagine how painful it is for the parents to have a divorce, because if it's that difficult a situation at home, that's not good for the children either.